Dean Gornitis, Unleash This Book Reviews, bringing you new book reviews. Yeah, no, let's start over again. Dean Gornitis, Unleash This Book Reviews. I'm back. Let's call this brief period of time where we didn't have any videos there a summer vacation. Back home, back with the blue wall, Buffalo, New York. Glad to be here. Gonna be here for a while longer. So I've been waiting to get my tripod. Finally it comes. I get it all set up. I'm all jacked about taping this video, and then I can't find my microphone. And I've torn up all my suitcases and I still can't find my microphone. So fingers crossed on that. For now, you're gonna have to deal poor quality audio stuff. Sorry about it, man. Anyways, finally getting to the contest winner's book from like probably almost a month ago, a little bit later. Had a contest, winner got to pick the next book that I review. Turned out to be Ernest Hemingway's In Our Time. Now I have a good history with Ernest Hemingway book reviews. If you check out my channel, some of my previous videos, I've yet to read For Whom the Bell Tolls, and you know, I feel pretty down about that. I know that's one of his staples, but outside of that, I do feel like I have a pretty good grasp on Hemingway and his style. If you're familiar with this, you can just skip ahead. If not, a lot of people associate Hemingway with his journalistic almost style of writing. He was helped a lot by Ezra Pound, similar to T.S. Eliot in The Wasteland, to helped in a different way though than Eliot. Ezra Pound and James Joyce both kind of helped Hemingway come up with this sparse writing style that really hoped to tell more than the truth by telling pretty much only the truth. You know, leaving out as many unnecessary details as possible and coming up with this theory known as the theory of omission, or the iceberg theory, in that only the most basic necessary facts are seen on the page in similar fashion to the tip of an iceberg, whereas the majority of the meat and the feeling and emotion of the story is still felt, is still known to be there, but it's all under the water. You only get the tip of the iceberg, but you know the rest is there. That's what Hemingway's really known for. Now, In Our Time was his first short story collection, which was published in two different versions, a 1924 version and a 1925 version. And this was when Hemingway was still really young, you know, way before Old Man and the Sea. You know, this is his first short story collection. And the 1924 version was very small, in fact, and it was just full of these short, like, one-page, I guess you call it like flash fiction today. It was a collection of that. You know, I want to say it was only maybe 30 pages long, something around there. And then a year later, he used those super short stories as dividers in between more normal length short stories and put them all together and created In Our Time in caps, as opposed to the original version, which was not in capital letters. Anyways, while this is a collection of short stories, they do all interconnect into more or less a full story. It's sort of maybe his most like experimental work, if you want to look at it as a full story, but they can all be read separately as individual short stories that work really well. But the majority of these stories do follow the life of his semi-autobiographical character, Nick Adams. And Hemingway wrote this character, Nick Adams, from the beginning of this collection as a child to the end where he's a grown adult who's lived through relationship problems and you know, World War I and things like that. And it seems like he really used this as an outlet to help, you know, settle and get over a lot of the feelings that he felt himself. You know, it's not a complete biographical work, but you definitely can see tendencies of Hemingway's self in this character, Nick Adams. Some of the short stories here in the book hit me more than others. Some I found to be kind of, you know, boring, but I suppose they do set up and explain more about this character. the story, the collection opens up with the story that's titled The Indian Camp, I believe. And this is sort of like a rite of passage story where you have Nick Adams, who's a young child, going with his father to like an Indian camp, and upon his father's a doctor, and he comes upon this woman who is in desperate need of a C-section to give birth to her child, but there's no anesthetics, there's no real doctor tools to be used, and Nick is forced as a child to watch this C-section that his father performs with a jackknife. Obviously, probably a scarring moment for a child that probably did a lot to create the character that he would grow up to be. He wants to look away from this operation, but his father doesn't let him. Now, on top of that, once the C-section has been completed, her husband has been laying up in a bed, which is more or less unviewable from the doctor and the child at the time, until they go up to see what's going on with the husband, and they find that he has committed suicide, which Nick also views, even though it seems apparent that his father didn't want him to see that much gruesome stuff. And this all kind of comes together to form the type of person that Nick grows up to be. Now, at the end of the story, he sees this gruesome death, and he associates birth with death, and I believe one of the final lines in the story is Nick saying that he's never going to die. And you just wonder the effect that this has on him as he grows older. Now, there's more stories I don't want to delve into as in depth and ruin everything for you, but one of the next short stories is his father trying to get a few Native Americans to do some work for him concerning some logs, cutting them up and such. But the character that he has wanting to do work finds a way to weasel out of the work, and just gets a little. It's just not that exciting. But what to me is the most interesting part of that short story is near the end. The father who just got rejected out of getting his work that he is rightfully owed, goes to take a walk out into the woods and tells his son Nick that his mother wants to see him, and Nick pleads with his father to please, instead of go see my mom, can I go with you out into the forest, and his father agrees. And so you get a little more character growth here with Nick as you see the bond that he's starting to have with his father, and to see where that might go. Now, there's other stories in here. There's one where Nick gets kicked off of a train because he didn't pay his fare and he was trying to stow away, and he runs into a boxer who has some, mental problems, not extreme, but because of his boxing history. That story didn't do a whole lot for me. It was okay. I'd be interested to hear from you guys why you think that story plays more of an important part in the collection. To me, it was kind of one you could easily pass by on. Another short story titled, let me check my notes here. I write this stuff down just in case. The 3-Day Blow. I really liked that one. Now, you get a story before this about how Nick breaks up with his girlfriend, and then 3-Day Blow comes along, and it's unclear exactly how much time has passed since the breakup, but some time has, and he sits down and he has drinks with his friends, and the conclusion to that story is one of the most moving connections that I've had in a story. It's a feeling I guarantee every single guy out there who's maybe older than 12 and has dated can relate to, and it's so good I don't even want to spoil it. Check that short story out if you don't check any of them out, and see what you think about the ending to that story, because that one kind of almost gave me chills. There's more short stories in this collection that gain a lot of recognition in the literary world, like The Two-Hearted River, I believe it's titled, which is like a 2-part story of Nick after he's gone to war in World War I and trying to sort of escape that feeling of, all those feelings that come with being a war veteran and stuff like that by by sort of going out into the wilderness and camping by himself. And that's another story where not a whole lot happens on the surface concerning that iceberg theory, but you know down below that there's a lot more underneath of feelings, of emotions, of maybe trying to cleanse your spirit, trying to get away from things that you don't want to be near anymore. Emotions like that you know are there but aren't explicitly told. And that's what Hemingway's famous for. That's what he's most known for. And that's why he's one of the biggest literary figures in literature. Probably wouldn't recommend this one if you've never read Hemingway before, but if you have read a few of his books and you're looking for something to continue your journey on, I definitely like this one. It was worth it. And I'm not always a fan of everything that Hemingway has written, which if you've seen other videos of mine on Hemingway, you'll know that. But this one I can pass on to you as an honest good read if you're a Hemingway fan. If not, try out one of his more famous books first. That's all I can say. That's it for now. I'm going to try and push out some more videos for you guys a lot faster. Maybe I can even get more than one out a week for the next few weeks, because I owe you from my summer break, you know. Let's get these videos going again. Still working on The Sound and the Fury, but that's going to take a long time. That's more difficult than I thought, but I do plan on taking it down. I am reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I am slowly getting through David Foster Wallace's The Pale King. I have plans to read a few other books, and I've also just finished a book that was self-published by an author. I'm not always big on self-published works, but I did like this one. I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was, I guess you could say cute almost, and I plan on shooting that one to you guys soon too. Alright, so hopefully next time I see you I will have my microphone back and we can start getting some good quality audio again. Until then, I'll see you soon guys. Thanks for tuning in.